board.
Yeah, looks like we got the recording going. Okay, so I've got about 1:02 here. So do I want to call this meeting to order of the Nevada Board for Indigent Defense Services? And first of all, let's start with a roll call. And you say we already done that and we've got a quorum?
We haven't done it yet. I was just looking at the names that are here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So we know that, but
Yeah. Want me to do a roll call?
yes, please.
Chair Dave Mendiola,
Here.
Laura Fitzsimmons, Joni Eastley,
Yep.
Chris June Kiliani, Jeff Wells.
Hello.
Hello. Drew Christensen.
Hello.
Hi, Drew. Kate Thomas,
I'm here.
Lorena Dellinger,
I'm here.
Commissioner Cassie Hall,
I'm here.
Allison Jaffe,
I'm here.
Harriet Cummings,
Here.
and Jared Hickman.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Jared. And Justice William Moppin. That'll do it.
Cindy, you do have a new member of Lorena Dellinger.
I think she brought her up there. So.
I did, Marcy. I asked her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Item number 2, public comment. And want to put on the record here that we did receive a written comment from Dennis Kiernan Jr., I believe the name is pronounced, and it was provided to the board in the board packet. I don't know if we need to do anything more with that. Just let us know that we did receive it, and I did read that. So, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Dave, I'd like to ask Marcy, what happens with this complaint now?
Generally, we forward complaints on to let individuals know. We have limited authority necessarily to do anything with the complaint. Tom, I know you were dealing with these. Did we do anything with this?
Yeah, we generally respond to the complainant and then forward it on to whoever the interested party or parties are.
In this case, is it Jim Shirley? Would we send that?
I don't think we send it to Judge Shirley, but I can check and get back with you on that. I apologize. I can't remember.
No, I was just curious when you said we would send it to interested parties. He'd probably be the one who would be the most interested in it.
Yes, I think we definitely sent it on to the attorney involved and or the office involved. I will. Again, I don't want to misspeak. I would have to check and see if we sent it to Judge Shirley.
Yeah, I think Jim used to be on this board, didn't he, Dave?
You know, I think at one time he may have been. Yes.
He was. He definitely was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Jim, so he would definitely be interested in this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Thomas. Also, item number 3 is introduction of our new board member, Lorena Dellinger, Assistant County Manager out in Nye County. Welcome aboard, Lorena. And next up, we'll move to approval of minutes. Have 2 sets of minutes here. The first is the BDR subcommittee business, and that's the approval of the August 8, 2022 minutes. And of course, this is the limited subcommittee on bill drafts. And so I guess, has everybody had a chance to read those minutes and have any questions or edits?
Mr. Chair, can we combine A and B, and I'll make a motion to approve both sets of minutes from August 8th and August 18th?
I'm
And
good
this
with
is Chris.
that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Who was that? Chris?
Joni.
Chris, yeah. Joni and Chris.
Joni and Chris. Okay. So we're going to combine A and B, which B is the board's approval of the August 18, 2022 minutes. So we'll combine those two. I've got a motion and a second. There are not any questions. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Looks like we've got approval of that. Thank you for the recommendation.
Chair, just asking if we could go back to item number 2, public comment. You
Yes.
did point out that there was one public comment that was received written, but there may be individuals online that would like to make a public comment.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't
Very
know if
good.
you want to ask, and I see someone in the old assembly room, so I don't know if they intend to make public comment. Just a reminder.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, so we'll go back to item 2. Public comment. Is there anybody in the virtual meeting or there at the Carson City Assembly that would like to make a comment?
Excuse me, board members, I want to make sure that I'm responding to the appropriate topic. Are we discussing the public defender yet in the application therefore?
No, we are not. We'll be
Thank you, sir.
getting to that here. Looks like next.
Thank you, sir.
Chair,
Right.
maybe we should qualify that this is the time for public comment, not during the individual items.
Correct. This would be for public comment, anything that's not on the agenda. You'd like to make a comment on that. Obviously, we can't take any action on that, but at this time, but if there's any public comment on any item that may not be on the agenda.
And Chair, I think people intend to make public comment on item number 5. Would you like to have the public comment on that item be taken now, or would you prefer them to wait until we address that issue?
You know, I think it probably better just to wait until we address it. We're going to bring it right now anyway. It's the next item. So we might as well do it. And we'll do that. I think what I'd like to do is let's go to that. Doesn't sound like there's any other public comment. So let's move away from that and we'll go to item number 5, board recommendations of candidates for consideration by the governor for appointment of the Nevada State Public Defender. This is for discussion and possible action. And it's information, discussion, and possible action regarding the ranked selection of candidates to recommend a Governor Sisolak for appointment to the position of the Nevada State Public Defender pursuant to NRS 180.010. And so what I'd like to do is, first of all, mention that we did have one withdrawal. That is Erica Roth, as my understanding, Marcy. And so what I'd like to do today is just mention to the board as a whole that the administration has brought forward 2 finalists now since Ms. Roth has withdrawn. And my plan today is to have each finalist be allowed to talk for 5 minutes to address the board. And at that point in time, once we're done with those, then I will open it up to public comment. How's that? All right, so why don't we start with Chris? We'll go in alphabetical order. Chris Arabia, looks like you're on the screen here. Welcome to the board, Chris. Nice to have you, and I'll put you on the clock here if you're ready to go.
Good afternoon, thank you. My name is Chris Arabia, and I want to just briefly touch on 3 areas that I think would make me a good person for this position. The first is experience. I've been a public defender in the trenches in Nye County and Esmeralda County, primarily from 2010 to 2019. I've also been on the Clark and federal panels. I've got a track record of great results in trials, negotiations, other things such as getting clients into drug court or other help that they need. I'm well versed in doing the job in the rurals. I've spent the times in motels during trial. I've had to do trials without any support staff, a lot of the challenges that happen. And then the last 4 years, I've been the district attorney in Nye County. I led the office through the pandemic, the closures, and that was certainly a challenge, but it was something that I was proud to do and that had to be done. I've gained an understanding of the prosecution side of cases in the rural setting, and I think that would help being in the state public defender position. I tried to put in a philosophy of a more, I don't know, a focus on just outcomes. And what I mean by that is we tended to focus on the actual harm caused and what a just punishment would be, modified by the strength of the evidence rather than the conventional approach of just trying to impose as much time as possible on people. And I think we got better outcomes, certainly in murder, DUI death, and animal cruelty cases. Those were 3 areas where it worked out really well. And I think we also improved the DA's office adherence to discovery and disclosure rules, which had traditionally been an issue in Nye County. The second is resilience. I think that ensuring good indigent defense in the rolls is always going to be a challenge, and will be even more so if there's an attempt to make changes, which is something that is probably needed. I've shown the mettle to not fall into a business as usual kind of mindset when times get difficult. As DA, I made a lot of efforts to make reforms, met a great deal of resistance, but I stood strong for what I believed in, for better or worse. An example of that is I refused to prosecute political cases earlier this year. One was against a sheriff's candidate, and then there was another case against 2 police officers who there was a request to prosecute them for a felony for getting into a Facebook spat with another police officer, and I wasn't going to be a part of that, regardless of any difficulties that might have caused. And then I guess the last area is vision, and I largely agree with the vision that DIDS has for the State Public Defender's Office, and would really like to be a part of it. I think that recruiting is always going to be a key, and I think that the idea that the State Public Defender can bring some prestige and support to people and make the positions more attractive is really a great idea. And then having senior attorneys available, I think, to go around and assist when it's needed would also be a great thing. In more general terms, I've had a lot of personal exposure to flat fee agreements and a politicized selection process. And I know that's not exactly in the NSPD bailiwick necessarily, but those are things that I would hope to see phased out. And then finally, I think that, protecting the most vulnerable people in any society against the power of the state is a very noble undertaking. And I would be happy to speak about that to students, young lawyers, the rural public. I don't know, sometimes people don't really understand what the defense function really means. And then when you explain it to them, they are more receptive to it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arabia. Appreciate your time. And you're under your 5, so well done. So we'll move on now to Charles Odgers. Charles, are you online here?
I am, thank you. My name is Chuck Odgers. I've been the Chief Deputy Public Defender. I just celebrated my 3rd year here back at the Nevada State Public Defender's Office. Let me just say that we can look backwards, we can look forwards. I prefer to look into the future as to where we need to be, where we need to go, and how to get there. You see a lot of my staff are on the Zoom call. I'm not real good with the computer stuff. Here's the reality. We're taking a battleship called Indigent Defense, we're trying to turn it. And you can't turn it on a dime. And it takes people that have been in the trenches day in and day out to work with the people that we have to deal with. My indigent clients, my staff's indigent clients. Across the state of Nevada, the indigent clients need to have leadership. DIDS provides some of that leadership, and they're providing some of the framework. But the simple reality is that the Nevada State Public Defender's Office is going to be the captain of that ship. Marcy's the admiral, we're the captains. Our job is to go out and try and improve indigent defense services, not just in Carson and Story, but White Pine, Nye, Esmeralda, all of them. In order to do that, we need to have the ability to communicate with the county commissioners, recognize that the county commissioners have a very intense need to have a say in what they're doing in their in their counties. They were elected for that purpose. In order for us to make inroads, we have to make relationships. And those relationships come from working with them. I was a public defender in White Pine County for 4 years. In that 4 years, I did 24 jury trials. In that 24 jury trials, I got 14 not guilty verdicts. I worked with the commission. I worked with the city council when I was the city attorney over in the city of Ely. The reality is that this job is about communication. The reality is this job is about trying to get people to understand that those that are most needy, the indigent defense, the people that can't afford, the people that do the job, need to have qualified attorneys. That's what our office does. That's what I'm proud of my office. I'm proud of the work that they've done. And I believe that I'm the right leadership to keep moving this ship forward. My staff is here. I didn't ask them to be here. They're choosing to be here. I want to lead this staff. I've led this staff. I've made changes, core changes, and I intend to keep moving forward with that. Ultimately, you're going to make the choice of who to recommend to the governor. The governor's going to make that choice. But I believe, as much as I know about Mr. Arabia, he's a very qualified attorney, but he's not the right person for this office. He's not the right person to lead this group of people. So I would ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Appreciate it. I guess what I'll do now is I'd like to just kind of turn my attention to the administration and Marcy. So Marcy, obviously, I just want to let the board know you went through the interview process and obviously brought forward the 3 names, which ended up being 2 today. But before I do that, I do want to open it up now. We had some folks, I believe, on the line here that wanted to comment, and I will do that now before I come back to you, Marcy. So why don't we do this? Go ahead and just announce your name and we'll take you one by one.
Hi, I'm Christopher Blanford. I was a public defender with Chuck Odgers at the Nevada State Public Defender's Office. I'm currently a public defender at Washoe County Public Defender's Office. I want to speak to something very specific that Mr. Odgers said that had to do with qualified attorneys. It's been my experience that public defender's office in particular have been training grounds and learning grounds for young attorneys. I was a young attorney when I came to the Nevada State Public Defender's Office. I had civil practice, but no experience in the realm of criminal practice. Those are hugely different worlds. And so what I want to talk about is mentorship. I am quite confident after hearing Mr. Rabia that he is capable, that he has tons of experience, and that he could be a great public defender in this office. However, what I want to focus on, because I'm sure everyone will talk about qualifications and abilities here, what I would like to focus on is mentorship. When I came to the Nevada State Public Defender's Office, I didn't know very much at all, frankly, and hence that's the term baby lawyer. And I was such a baby lawyer. I needed help through so much of the process. Yes, we study these things in law school. Yes, I law clerked, but I still needed to understand how the process works in practice when you're the one fighting for the clients. Mr. Odgers was incredibly effective at helping me not only appear in court, memorize the scripts that we have to get, for example, in laying down pleas or laying down negotiations for the court, but also in terms of having preliminary hearings, having trials, cross-examining witnesses, drafting motions, reviewing those motions. We went over these things in his office on a regular basis. Anybody knows who's ever trained anyone to do anything, it takes a ton of effort and a ton of work and a ton of dedication. Mr. Odgers showed that dedication to me, and I've seen him show it to others in the office. And it's that mentorship that I think is so valuable and so rare. I will never forget when a lot of us in law school were looking for jobs. We asked our professors, what should we look for? What should we look for? The best advice I got, mentorship. Find mentorship, because that's the rarest thing. All of you are smart. All of you can train to do anything, but mentorship, that's the rare thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blandford. Appreciate that very much. I did not mention up front that let's try to keep these comments to no more than, say, 3 minutes. Mr. Blandford was excellent. He kept her down to 2. So next up, just go ahead and announce your name for the record, please, and go ahead.
I'll go. Greetings to everybody. My name is Scott Walker, and I'm a deputy public defender here at the Carson City office. I've been here about 9.5 years, and I just want everybody to understand how big an asset Chuck has been to this office since he came. He's essentially ran this office since he's arrived, and he's, in my opinion, just done a tremendous job. It's comforting to know that he's here because he just has so much experience. He's a great leader. I don't know if that comes from his military background, but I mean, he runs a tight ship. We're all accountable, but he also, he's built a family, sort of. I mean, everybody here feels comfortable bringing up issues with the office. And, I just want the board to keep in mind from a common sense standpoint that he's the man that's been at the helm of this ship for the last 3 years. And in my opinion, has done a tremendous job. He is absolutely focused on the best interests of the clients. He bends over backwards for him, whether it's spending the court's money or DID's money to do the absolute best job. We're not afraid to do that. Like Chris Blandford said, Chuck has been a tremendous mentor to me. I already had a number of years of experience, but once he came, I felt like I was, I had a new mentor as well, just like Chris felt. So I didn't really have any planned comments, and I'm kind of rambling here, but I just want you guys to know that we really want Chuck here. And he's just an incredible attorney with a ton of experience, and he knows the administration. He knows all the players. Our judges here respect him. Opposing counsel respects him. And I just hope that you give him the opportunity to continue on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Walker. Next up.
My name is Sally DeSoto. I'm the Chief Appellate Deputy here at the Public Defender's Office. I've been here for 9.5 years. It's true, Mr. Rogers is a great mentor, and he's got this huge work ethic. He puts in more hours than anybody, but his door is always open. You can always go in there and talk to him about your case. I've gone in there to brainstorm with him often. And this is probably the first time since he's been here in the 9.5 years where I felt that we can really grow this office. I think that that's something that he's in line with, and we're moving forward. I also want to mention that he worked hard to get us in compliance with legal server. That was an issue. I don't know if that would have happened without Chuck. So I put my full support behind him. I'm hoping the board presents him to the governor and that he becomes our next public defender. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Soto. We will move on. Anybody else out there?
Well, I guess I'll go next. Everyone hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
My name is Guy Bovard. I'm one of the investigators at the State Public Defender's Office. I met Chuck Rogers in 2011 when he was assigned as the supervising attorney for the Public Defender's Office in White Pine County. I was the investigator out there. I am in my 50th, and that's 50 year as a criminal investigator. Attorneys like Chuck Rogers don't come along very often. He is an exceptional attorney and an outstanding manager and supervisor. I'm sure from the sheer number of letters that you have received, letters of recommendation from state judges, fellow workers here out of this office and areas, attorneys and the public, they all agree with this assessment. If you want to maintain the quality and integrity and professionalism of this office, I don't know of anyone more qualified than Chuck Odgers to be the state public defender. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bovard. Appreciate that. Next up, anybody?
Yes, this is Justice Moppin.
Go ahead,
I'm a
Justice. How are you?
Member of the committee. I just have a couple of questions to make. It says a lot when the people you work with are so enthusiastic about you becoming the boss. My question is how did this selection process go? There one pulled out, but how did this this culling work till you get down to the 3 that you've got?
Marcy, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, Justice Moppin, at the last board meeting, the board directed the department to prepare a list of job qualifications and an application, interview and make recommendations of 3 candidates to the board. So the department received 7 applications for the position of the Nevada State Public Defender. One of those candidates withdrew their application prior to the interviews with them, and one has since this morning withdrawn their application. The department interviewed the 6 candidates using a standardized set of questions. After the interview, the department decided that 3 of the applicants were not ideal. The 3 applicants did not live in the Carson City area and were unwilling to relocate to the Carson City area. They were actually on the other side of the state. The department considered all of the applicants, their strengths and their weaknesses, and we decided to put the 3 that were before you, which has now come down to 2, Mr. Arabia and Mr. Odgers. And those were the steps that we had taken.
All right. Well, thank you for that. There are several lawyers out in the system that are really great trial lawyers. The question is, to me, you have to have a competent trial lawyer to run a business like this. Otherwise, you don't have any leadership by example. That works whether you're in an organization like this, whether you're in the district attorney's office, or whether you're in a private law firm. And we have had one person who I'm familiar with from practicing in Las Vegas, from Ely, who is a top flight trial lawyer and has tried major civil cases as well as criminal cases. But I take it that the difficulty there is you need to have the main office in Carson City.
Yes, pursuant to the statute, the state public defender is required to be located in Carson City. At this point in time, Story County and Carson City are the only 2 counties that have currently opted in to representation. So that is the home office in Carson.
Well, I had a quip to give, but at this age, I've forgotten. So thank you.
Thank you, Justice Moppin. Appreciate it. Do we have anybody else online that would like to comment?
I'm assigning a case that's a juvenile case with the notice of selection. It'll go to district court.
Cindy, do you see anybody with their hand up?
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, I don't. Oh, wait, I have Melissa.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thanks. My name is Melissa Carlisle. I am currently the legal office manager at the Nevada State Public Defender's Office here in Carson City. I have been with the Public Defender's Office. I started off at the very bottom as an administrative assistant almost 9 years ago. So I've grown up here in this office. And I have to say, and I would like the board to know, that the last 3 years under Chuck's leadership have been incredible for our office. Chuck treats each person he comes across in this job with respect and dignity, whether it's his defendant or one of our clients who's accused of a category A felony down to somebody who's just been, cited. They get the same level of respect from Chuck, as do we as his staff. I speak on behalf of the support staff here in the office that we are excited to work under Chuck and to continue to work under his leadership because Chuck never asked us to do anything that he wouldn't do himself, from attorneys, investigators, even legal secretary duties. He's opened up cases. He's taken over the phones when we're short-staffed. He steps in wherever he needs to be. He's a true leader, and I would appreciate the board knowing that when they make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. One last shot. Anybody else on line that would like to make a comment? Okay, sounds like we've got no more. So at this time, what I'd like to do is, first of all, I'd like to just say that I want to thank Mr. Arabia and Mr. Rogers. I think we've got two very good candidates. I've looked through their resumes and all of the detail in the packet, and I'm very impressed. Both folks have done a really nice job, got great experience specifically here in Nevada. So I'm very impressed. I guess what at this time, Marcy, I'd like to ask you as the department where you want to go from here at this point in time.
Thank you. The governor's office has asked for a list of possible candidates for appointment to the Nevada State Public Defender. As you know, we've provided 3 names, which has come down to 2. So it's up to this department if they would like to rank these 2 individuals of their first pick and their second pick. Or I did reach out to the governor's office and they said that both could be moved forward if this board wanted to choose to do so without a ranking. So we would leave that to the board. And I believe Mr. Wells has a question.
Jeff, go ahead.
I have a question. Sorry.
Who was that?
Mine wasn't really a question as much as a comment. It's my understanding, and Marcy can correct me if I'm wrong, but really this board is not supposed to pick the candidate. This board is simply supposed to suggest names to the governor, and then the governor and his staff would do an interview to end up picking the candidate.
Right.
I don't think we should rank them. I think we should just send both names forward. It's unfortunate we can't send 3 names because I know they like to have 3 to select from, but it seems like we clearly have 2 qualified candidates. And so unless I'm wrong and we don't have the duty or the obligation or even the right to pick the actual candidate, I would submit both names up without being ranked.
Jeff, this is Joni in Tonopah. If that's a motion, I will second it. I don't want to rank them. I'd like to send both candidates forward to the governor's office.
Okay, I guess it was a motion.
And you have my second.
Okay, before we do that, though, is there any other board members that'd like to make a comment on this?
This is Chris. Yes, I just wanted to clarify when the original 3 names were recommended to this board, were they ranked by that committee?
No, this is Marcy Reba for the record. We just simply put the 3 names forward. We suspected Erica may have pulled her name. We didn't know, and she actually did end up doing that. We knew she was looking for alternate employment.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Justice Maupin. When we have in the past gone through judicial selection, the commission members were not supposed to rate the members. I think this is the way this worked today will work just as fine for the governor, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Justice.
Mr. Chair, this is Drew.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Drew.
I'll just piggyback on the comments. I was going to say the same thing as Justice Maupin. I know when the governor chooses a new district court judge and or recently appointed a Supreme Court justice, the candidates that are put forward out of the committees aren't ranked. It's just the top three of what moves forward. Similarly here at the county level, when we need to fill a vacancy for a justice of the peace, we put forward 3 names from the applicants that are brought to our attention. So I think this is a similar process where we can count on Marcy's group to pick the candidates that should move forward. And I think we should just, move forward by putting both candidates toward the governor.
Well said.
Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that. Is there any other board member that would like to comment on this, or are we ready to move forward with the motion?
Call for the question.
There's a motion and a second on the floor, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that motion and that second? If not, all those in favor of moving both candidates forward to the governor, please say aye.
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 Looks like we have a unanimous decision. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And to both Mr. Arabia and Mr. Rogers, congratulations. And we look forward to getting you on board, one of you guys. I really appreciate your time and your effort.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are welcome. All right, let's move forward. We're going to go on to item number 6, budget and legislative update for discussion and possible action. Marcy, I think you're going to handle this, and we'll start with FY22 reported county indigent defense expenses and maximum contribution reimbursement updates.
That is correct, Chair. Marcy Reba for the record. I just wanted to provide this board with an update. Each quarter, counties are to report to us their indigent defense spending. And as you can see in this report for fiscal year 22, the counties have reported their spending and the department has reviewed whether they are over or under the maximum contribution. In bold on the second to last line, you can see the total that was reimbursed as of November 2022. So this reimbursement was based on July 15th reporting to our office, which is the final quarter of the fiscal year. And in total, we were able to reimburse over $1.8 million to all of the rural counties. So we were extremely successful. There was an issue with the Elko and the Story County reimbursement, which has been fixed. Those counties have been reimbursed as reflected in this report. Over to the right, you'll see outstanding requests based on updated reporting. Pursuant to the statute, attorneys have up to 60 days from the close of a case to submit their billing. So counties were contacting us, telling us they still had fiscal year 22 spending for bills that were coming in late. So in this initial first quarter reporting that was due October 15th, we gave counties the opportunity to amend their fourth quarter reporting and add any late bills that they hadn't been able to previously report. We did get an additional request from Douglas County, White Pine County, Elko, and the additional reporting caused Humboldt to go over their maximum contribution formula. So we are planning we've prepared a work program to request reimbursement for those counties so that each county can be brought whole. And we will update the board at the next meeting as to whether or not that's granted. And that's the update I have on fiscal 22. If there's any questions.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Marcy. Why don't you move on to item B, FY23.
Yes, going to fiscal year 23, quarter one reporting. Again, this was due October 15th. And as you can see, all of the reporting that's been received has been submitted. Lander County is not intending to ask for reimbursement along with Clark and Washoe County. So they have not been submitting quarterly reports. So we don't have anything to report on that. But you can see what they've spent in the first quarter, and no county has reached their maximum in this first quarter.
Very good, thank you.
Moving on to the next is the upcoming legislation, if I'm okay to move on to that, Chair.
Please do.
I have provided this board with a copy of Senate Bill 39. This is our bill draft request where we are seeking to have confidentiality of the records that attorneys are required to provide to the department. So I've provided the board with a copy of the bill draft as has been filed with the legislature. As you know, we've also submitted some budget bills. None of those, my understanding is those can go to Ways and Means as needed. But I have not heard of any of those moving forward at this point. In this upcoming legislative session, we are planning to go to the legislature to start meeting each of the legislators now that we know who they are, and talking about indigent defense and the changes that need to be made. So if the board has any direction on advice that they'd like to give us, we would be open to that. I know that was an item that wanted to be addressed, is what the plan is for this upcoming legislative session.
Thank you, Marcy. Board, anybody have any comments?
This is Chris. I have a question. When they do the orientations for the new legislators, Marcy, do they invite you all in, or does someone give them a down and dirty background so at least they're familiar?
Thank you, Chris. Marcy Reba for the record. Yes, they do a training for legislators. I have reached out to LCB to ask if we can participate in that training, and they said they would let me know. I have not heard anything since, but I can follow up.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important, especially when we're still kind of a newbie. There's enough people that are going to be changing. It's just a lot of new folks coming in.
Can I jump in? This is Allison Jaffe.
Go ahead, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that our main focus with the legislature this year, other than the confidentiality, which I really appreciate too, is funding. We need better funding for our staff. We're way behind even the local district attorneys, who, by the way, in Carson have just unionized. But it's all about getting higher pay and better benefits for the staff. I know most of the public defenders, really are very concerned about their clients. They're working for justice, and that's a huge deal. And we need to make sure that they're fully supported, I think, with better pay. And so I was just wondering if there's any way that we can explore, or ask Marcy and her staff to explore, professional assistance. Can we hire a lobbyist? Can we find the money somewhere, or find donations? Because I think that if we can get, lobbyists both paid and unpaid, then that would be a huge boost for the staff that's sorely underpaid.
Thank you, Allison. Those are great comments, and I agree with that. I think there's been some discussion in the past amongst in board meetings about pay, not only for our staff, but in general. And I think it's been generally felt that that's a really important issue. And I agree with what you're saying here. So Marcy, why don't you go ahead and respond to Allison's question?
Chair, I know that Attorney General Henna, are you on? Can you hear us? We had asked her if she had some advice, if she was able to guide us on whether or not we're able to hire a lobbyist, and she had some experience from some other boards that she's been on. So I would ask her if she's able to unmute. I need to make sure she's still here. Okay.
I am sorry. I had to attend my phone again. So boards that I have that do hire lobbyists, they are licensing boards. However, they're self-funded. So I don't know so they certainly do hire lobbyists. I have several boards that do that. But then the question came up with regard to whether a general funded board would be able to do that. And that's not something I've looked into. So, Marcy, you may want to have Sophia look into that.
And yes, we can explore that, Chair, if you would like us to. And we could put that on as possibly a next agenda item if we have authority. We do have training budget for the board. And since we've gone to mainly virtual meetings, that budget generally sits untouched because we're not meeting in person. We're not needing to use those funds. So we could explore whether those funds could be used. Would probably need authority. So I can reach out and determine that.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board have any comments or
Yes,
questions?
Mr. Chair, just a comment about lobbying. It's Joni in Tonopah. Whether or not we engage the services of a paid or an unpaid lobbyist should not stop us as individual board members from contacting as many legislators as we can, or the ones that we are familiar with, and to encourage them to increase funding for this department.
Yeah, I agree, Joni. That's a very good comment. That's one of the things that I know we spend a lot of time doing out here in the rurals. It's critical to our day-to-day activity on many issues. And I think this is a very important one. And I would encourage all the board members to reach out to anybody that they know in the legislature.
This is Chris. I would echo not only that, but it might not hurt for one of us, some of us, all, or that was the past.
Hey, Chris.
Chris, you're breaking up. Can you say that again?
They've got $11 billion that they didn't plan on because of gaming increases, and it should go to justice issues.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's Joni in Tonopah. I was just talking to Marcy about that yesterday afternoon, that the state is predicting a $2 billion increase over what they had projected their revenues to be. So this might be a good time.
Yeah.
Do we have a salary schedule or I know we talked about a salary review to see how we are underpaying still our folks in this field. Is that still relevant, or am I dreaming about that we did something?
No, we definitely did something, did we not, Marcy?
Yes, Chair, that was Chris for the record. Yes, we did prepare a salary study, and we did compare our salaries to the Attorney General's office and found that the public defender was not even keeping pace with the Attorney General. And of course, we're not keeping pace with counties as well. So that's what was recommended by our data analyst, was to request a salary increase to match Attorney General's.
This is Bill Maupin. Allison, hi there. You bring up a very important point, but it's a point that has existed going all the way back to my first involvement in public service law, which was to be a board member of Nevada Legal Services, and then later Clark County Legal Services. They always were underpaid. And so we tried to increase the pay of those type of lawyers. And it worked, except that it wasn't enough. And the budgets of the Supreme Court and the district courts and all of that, there's always a tension about how much one agency pays their lawyers versus what some other agency or branch of government pays their lawyers. And I'll be happy to speak to that in one of the hearings or in the hearings if that comes up. But it is essential that we be able to, if we mean what we say in forming this organization, these people need to have resources similar to that of the government that's prosecuting them.
Thank you, Justice. Couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, I think we've got maybe more than ever before, we've got the foundation with the Davis settlement to help prop up that argument. So, and obviously we've done that. I know that we've done that here in Humboldt County and made an effort to make sure that our PDs are equal, at least equal with our DA's office. So, and that has worked well. So, any other comments on this?
Dave, this is Drew. I had a comment. Marcy, what's the status of our bill draft we contemplated months ago that dealt with NRS 7.125 and the hourly rates? Is that one of those bill drafts you had mentioned that's set for Ways and Means, or do we know where the status of that's at?
My understanding, Drew, is because that is a budget bill, it did not need to be filed by this upcoming deadline where our policy bill was filed. So that could be brought in at a later date, but it has not been submitted yet.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, this is Chris again. Marcy, is there any direction that you need from the board to work, to do something or submit?
And Chair, if you would like to give us direction, look into the lobbyist, and if we find permission that we're allowed to hire the lobbyist and we're allowed to use that funding, if we could seek a possible contract to bring to the next board meeting for approval of this board, so we can try and get those answers if I have your authority to do that, to get that taken care of. I don't know if it could get done in that amount of time, but we can try.
I think that
And
would
in
be
lieu of,
a good thing.
yeah, that's one good approach. In lieu of being able to hire a lobbyist, is there a committee chair that we could go to and say, hey, can we get this on your radar? Or should you reach out to Danielle Marino, who will be the new chair of Ways and Means, and talk to her? Or maybe contact Maggie Carlton, former chair, and have her put in a good word. I mean, there's different avenues that could be utilized.
And Chris, it's Joni in Tonopah. Maybe we should also include NACO on that list.
Good idea. Yeah.
And this is Allison Jaffe. We have, our next meeting is not until February 2nd. I'm wondering if we can have a vote either now that's specific enough to get us going, or maybe have a special, just a phone vote in January, so we make sure we get this done.
Yeah, that would be my assumption, is that we can't obviously vote on anything like that, but I would like to consider that. I like that idea, Allison, maybe a special meeting to take this up specifically so that we'll be on the record as a board. And I would encourage you, Marcy, to look into that, both the effort of, raising salaries, as well as looking at our lobbyist issue.
Thank you, Chair. We'll add that to the next agenda and I'll give you an update.
Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on. Item number 7, oversight update. I think Thomas is going to give us the update on that.
Thank you, Chair. It's Tom Qualls for the record. There's a number of things here, and I'll just pause in between each one in case there are questions or comments. The first one is the weighted caseload study. I think the board knows that one of the Davis requirements is that we perform this, or hire to perform this weighted caseload study in order to assess the adequacy of staffing of indigent defense attorneys in the individual counties. One of the reasons why we rolled out the legal server case management system to collect some of this uniform data. So we've been working with NCSC, the National Center for State Courts, for I think the better part of 2 years on this. The first year obviously was plagued with COVID, so that caused some anomalies in the reporting, and so it got kicked out a little bit. Also got kicked out in order for us to collect a full year of data from legal server. And all of that has been completed. The one thing that we don't have yet is that the RAND Corporation is doing has done a nationwide study on this and is getting ready to publish it. The last time anyone did this was the ABA. It was approximately 50 years ago. So those standards are pretty dated and not accurate right now, in our opinion. Anyway, what we understand is that the RAND study was completed in May, but it's undergoing pretty rigorous peer review, and they sort of keep kicking the can down the road as to when that's going to be available. We thought it would be available in June and then in September, and then the last thing we heard is that we may not get it until January. So that's where we are right now. We think it would be irresponsible to produce any kind of weighted caseload study that does not, incorporate that or use that as a comparison, at least. So we're just waiting for them to officially release the RAND Corporation study in order for us to finish that. I will say, related to that, we've talked about this a bunch, but there is an obvious insufficient number of indigent defense attorneys in these rural counties. It's like we talk about squeezing the balloon, we're pulling them here and taking them there. And some of the courts are really remote. So virtual appearances are necessary, especially because a lot of the people willing to take these cases are in Vegas. And we're also having trouble right now with some rural counties with the judges not allowing virtual appearances on minor hearings. So that's another struggle in this. And hopefully once we get the weighted caseload study and we're able to up the numbers, we can remedy that as well.
So Tom, I have a question, Dave Mendiola for the record. Does this waiting on the RAND information to add to the data set, is that going to cause us any problems on any front in terms of, with any internal workings that we're trying to get done with our groups? Is there any issues like that? Waiting too long, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, in a perfect world, we would have had the results last June, and then the counties would have a year to comply with it. And so, that would mean in June of 2023, we would, hopefully be up to compliance with the new standards. So that's, from a practical standpoint, earlier is definitely better. But as far as Davis compliance or anything like that, I think we're still in compliance because we hired NCSC on time, and we are, actively still working on this issue. And for a very practical, responsible reason, out of our control, it's not done yet.
I understand. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on that, Thomas?
No, that's all on that. I can move on if there's no other comments.
If no other
Well,
comment,
I have one. So there are district judges around the state and justices of the peace around the state who will not allow Zoom appearances?
That's correct. And we've been addressing this with the judges directly in a number of different counties and explaining the issues to them, encouraging them to go ahead and allow that for now, until we can, have more of a surplus of available indigent defense lawyers. Right now, there's only one county that remains a little bit of a current problem, and we're still working on that.
Well, I'm just saying you're going directly to the judges is nice, but the Chief Justice of the state runs the judicial system in that sense. And you maybe should approach the Chief Justice about that problem, and then you might end up with a one judge order fixing the problem.
Thank you, Justice. That we actually discussed that today, so that's very helpful. That suggestion is coming from you that is an option, and we will pursue that because I think it would be very helpful to have a blanket state policy on that under the circumstances.
Tom, I just wanted to add, this is Allison Jaffe. One of the things that might be helpful is asking the court staff how they're treating the civil cases. Because in most counties, when I practice divorce, anything that short of a settlement conference or a trial, all of those are Zoom, and they're just, so it goes so well, we don't have to charge our clients as much. And I think that's an access to justice issue for criminal cases. So I don't know if that might help too. But I also agree with Justice Maupin. We had the one judge order during COVID, so they're kind of used to it. I think that might be a really good idea.
Thank you, Allison.
Any other comments before we move on here? All right, Thomas, go ahead on item C.
So the next one is the sixth report.
Excuse me, item B, sorry.
The next one is the sixth report of the Davis Monitor. As usual, Professor Hanan, I believe, is on the call. And so if anyone has any questions for her, I'm just going to make some very brief comments. If anyone has any more in-depth questions of her, she's available. I would say in general, the report echoes the last several, which details a lot of the achievements of the department and then lists a few concerns. And the concerns are essentially what we've talked about. A lot of these issues overlap. Concerns are primarily about lack of adequate budget for the department and lack of adequate staffing in order to fully comply with some of the Davis requirements, including more robust oversight on site. The monitor notes a number of achievements that include data collection on the attorney workload. This spills into a later issue, but we now have a full year of quarterly reports from data collected from our legal server case management system, which is an enormous accomplishment and win, given the reluctance of these a lot of them independent attorneys to do this, especially people with public defenders who's never been asked to collect this kind of data. So that's a big one. The wage salary survey we have discussed here and in previous meetings. The reimbursement, I think we discussed in some depth, but $1.6 million almost to Davis counties and over $225,000 to non-Davis counties and reimbursements. She notes oversight and the opinions and recommendations of Soval Solutions, our data analysts, regarding what is needed to fully and completely, comply regarding oversight. Other assistance to counties and training and the completion of additional Delphi panels and the bill draft requests we have again addressed in other areas here. Those are all accomplishments that the monitor notes. And again, the areas of concern are just the insufficient number of qualified attorneys, especially in the rurals, the inadequate budget and staffing, and the delay in the workload standards. And the full report was attached. It is incredibly thorough, and I'm sure Professor Hanan could answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Thomas. Board members, anybody have any questions for Professor Hanan?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. And thank you, Professor. Appreciate your time on that. Did you want to say anything?
I just want to thank the department, Marcy, and all, Tom, everyone there for being so helpful and cooperative in the process. Really appreciate it. They're doing great work.
Great, thank you. All right, Thomas, how about item C?
So the next one, again, I touched on briefly, it's the fiscal year 23 Q1 quarterly data reports. These are based upon data that we've gathered from Legal Server, which is our uniform data collection tool. With this quarterly report, we now have a full year of indigent defense data from across the state. This has not ever happened or been available or was even compiled in the individual counties before. So it's a pretty big deal. It started, you know, a little shaky. The first quarter was not very robust, but it grows in completeness and accuracy every quarter. So again, we're pretty proud of this, and we think it will continue to get better. That report was also attached. I don't know if anybody has a comment or question on that.
I will just say, Dave Mendiola, for the record, that I want to thank the whole team. That is a big accomplishment, getting everybody to report in that data set. Now I think will continue to grow, and I think that's a huge accomplishment in my mind, because I know where we started from, and so that's great. I really appreciate all the efforts that you all made on that front.
Thank you, Chair. Oversight update is next. Again, due to kind of short staffing and the number of things that have been on our plate lately, there's not been a ton of boots on the ground oversight. We did go to Humboldt County recently, where conveniently Chair Mendiola was in Reno. So we weren't able to meet with him, but we did meet with the public defender and the alternate public defender, spent the day with them. And really, anytime we do that, we really gain some valuable insight into how things are working, what the issues are, what the shortages are, and where we need to put our focus. So that was good. Most of our oversight is remote and dealing with a lot of, well, not a lot, but several common issues, continuing to build at least 2-tier systems in all of the counties, including Elko and Lyon, working with NIE in their discussions on building a county public defender's office, which we're pretty excited about. I don't know if we've announced this or not, but White Pine opted into the state public defender for primary public defense services. There is a little scuttlebutt amongst the stakeholders there, and they officially have until the end of the month to withdraw that request, but we've made, you know, the preliminary steps to move forward with that. If they stick with that decision to opt in, we'll obviously keep the board updated as we know more about that. I think that's about all I have on oversight. Marcy, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing that I would add is Tom and I are looking at each county's plans, and we're looking to see if additional information needs to be added. One point which we've discussed previously is the municipal court piece. We're running into that issue where the statute says that a municipal court judge cannot select the next council. It needs to be in compliance with the county plans. but the county plans are silent on how this should take place. So we are reaching out to the counties that need to add something about a municipality to add that into their plans, so that we can assist with the selection of council or allow a designee to do that. So that's one step that we need to take. I know Lyon County intends to have their public defender take over the municipal court. So we'll start to get reporting from municipal court numbers. I mean, this has kind of been the silent piece that we've had so far and haven't been able to conquer. So that's kind of what we're working on before May.
Thank you, Marcy. Any other questions about that issue, oversight?
Well, this is just related. This is Bill Maupin. I think that, I mean, I've been working with Zoom for the last couple of years, and there's a big disadvantage to it, which is you don't have that personal connectivity, and the personalities don't interact as genuinely as they would if they were in person. So one of the things you might want to consider, and I'll be happy to help with this, is get about 3 or 4 judges that are on senior status or are retired that actually physically go out and hold meetings with the staff of these lawyers so that they can get an opportunity to have some of the same contact and training with judges that they wouldn't otherwise. And talking about, you know, cross-examination, you know, the fundamentals of trying a case, that sort of thing. It might be something that would kind of also upgrade the fact that you have a younger demographic representing of lawyers, you know, representing indigents in criminal cases. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense, Justice. I think,
And
again,
it doesn't, and all it does is cost you the gas and the motel room in Austin.
I think it's a great idea.
Very good. Thank you, Justice. Okay, how about we move on to E?
Okay, thank you, Chair. This, I think, is going to require an action from the board, and that is we're going to request permission for DIDS to opt in to collaborate with an organization called Justice Counts and to share the indigent defense data that we've collected that we've been talking about. The executive director of the Nevada Department of Sentencing Policy, Victoria Gonzalez, I believe, is also still on the call, and she could probably answer more detailed questions, but I'll just tell you that the Department of Sentencing Policy, one of their mandates is to facilitate the collection of criminal justice data from across the state, and currently they have contracted with an organization called Justice Counts, and they are trying to collect this data from law enforcement, from the defense, from the prosecution, from courts and pretrial operations, from jails and prisons, and community supervision departments, meaning parole and probation. And so we would just be providing the defense or some of the data on the defense portion of that if the board allows us to opt into that. And I would turn over any questions beyond that to Victoria.
Okay, board, is anybody have any questions about that regarding, again, sharing that data? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve, to opt in to the opportunity to collaborate with Justice Counts and share that indigent defense data.
So moved. This is Allison.
This
Yeah,
is
I've got a
Chris. I'm
motion.
happy to make the.
I've got a motion from Allison. Do I have a second?
Second, Chris.
All right, Chris, thank you. Got a motion and a second, and looking for a vote on whether to opt in. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Sounds like that passes unanimously. All right, let's move on. Training update. I think, Tom, you're going to handle that.
I am doing that as well. Thank you, Chair. Peter Handy is busy right now with some last minute budget requests, so I'm going to cover this topic as well as I can for him. The first item is we have been collaborating with Clark County PD's office, Clark County Special PD's office, Washoe County Public Defender, Washoe County Alternate Public Defender, and our board member, Drew Christensen, on a series of homicide trainings. The first annual Defenders Homicide Conference. It is broken up right now for this year into 4 parts, and we have successfully put on 3 of those. Marcy can maybe correct me on the numbers, but I think there's been more than 100 participants virtually in each one of the sessions. I think they've been incredibly successful. The feedback that we've gotten has been pretty much uniformly positive, and I think it's a really great thing to pull, newer attorneys, trial lawyers into this kind of training and kind of break the ice for them a little bit, make it less intimidating, and also give current practitioners tools from people that are doing this across the state to help in this area. I don't know if Marcy, Drew, both of you have been presenters. I don't know if you want to provide any additional information.
Well, thank you, Tom. This is Drew Christensen for the record. I participated in the first training as a presenter, and I think what excited me was that many of the names of the participants I was unfamiliar with, which told me it was groups outside the Las Vegas area. And I also know there were many students from the Boyd Law School who jumped on as well. And so anytime we can get the excitement statewide to have that collaboration and effort between both the urban and the rurals, I think is fantastic. Now, I didn't get to see the second 2 presentations, but I know the presenters and what they presented. And so from what I saw, highly effective and highly statewide oriented. And so I congratulate those who put it on.
Great. Yeah, nice report. I'd love to hear that, especially participation wise. So anything else on that, Tom?
That's all I have on that.
Okay.
Why
don't you move on to 3rd Annual Defenders Conference?
Okay, we have been working, all of us in the office here, to prepare and line up our 3rd Annual Defenders Conference. It's scheduled for May of 2023. Our original pitch was to do it up at Lake Tahoe, but for funding reasons, which I'll explain in a minute, that didn't happen. So where we did land is at the Silver Legacy in Reno, and Marcy and I recently toured the facility with the staff there, and it's really just, I hadn't spent much time there recently. It's really an incredible facility. They're going to be very accommodating, and we're excited about it. We're working on contracts with them right now, just hammering out the final details. The theme of the conference will be storytelling, and we're lining up the presenters right now. We already have bids from some of them, and so we'll keep the board posted on what's going with that. But I think it's going to be a nice central location that's easy for a lot of people to get to. We're excited about, we did it down in the south last year, so we're excited about doing it in the north this year. Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is in our meeting where we went to Humboldt County, we did meet with Matt Sturmitz, who's the Humboldt County Public Defender there. We talked about the theory of what our training would be on, and he actually pulled out a book that is sold by the NACDL, and it's called Powerful Words, Storytelling, and Persuasion. So what we did is we actually purchased about 40 copies of that book. Our intention is to send it to every office. We intend to also send it to the Clark Public Defender, the alternate or the special, along with the Washoe and the alternate public defender too, to share that book along with that invitation for them to come to the training. So we hope that we will get a good turnout. That was the best thing last year, was seeing the urban attorneys and the rural attorneys, start to get to know each other. So that is going to be our marketing to try and sell it. But that was thanks to Matt Sturmitz in Humboldt to give us that idea.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy, for that update there. I will also tell you that, Matt was one of the, opposition party folks with respect to DIDS in general when this all began. But Matt has really got on board and really loves the work that, the team is doing. And so the chance to share that with you is great, because he's quite a storyteller. I'm not sure he didn't write it. So. All right, very good. Thank you, Tom. Anything else on that?
No, it plays into the next thing. So if you want me to move on to the next item, I can.
Please do. So
grant awards, there are two to talk about. The first one is the JEG sub-grant. We got $33,000 this year to pay for rural attorneys, pay for their travel and lodging accommodations at the annual conference. This is something that we did last year. Hopefully we get even more rural attorneys to attend this year, but this is high on our priority list in putting on the annual conference. Of course, this is something that prosecutors have enjoyed for years, these statewide conferences, and this has not really been done on this scale since we did it. Jared Hickman put on the first one virtually, and then last year we did the first live one. So this year, again, we're really excited about the opportunity and the ability to make this, free of cost as much as possible to rural attorneys to travel there, to stay there. And of course, there's no cost for the conference itself. The bad news that I touched on earlier is we wanted to do it at Lake Tahoe, and the grant people said, no, we're not going to pay for that. We'll pay for it if you do it in Reno. So we're in Reno, but we're in a really great facility with tons of offerings there, lots of great places to eat and for us to meet and hold our kind of collaborative sessions together. So that was the first grant. The second one is the JRJ grant, in which we received just over $78,000 to help with student loan assistance for indigent defense providers. And that, even though we got that money, it's basically on hold right now because there's been all of the student loan payments were paused until June of next year. So we're just basically going to sit on that grant monies until people technically have to start paying their loans again. But that's still a big deal, and we continue to try to put the word out that that is an opportunity for public defenders to take advantage of, one of the perks of doing this kind of work. Anything to add on either of those grants, Marcy?
I would just add the JRJ grant is open to prosecutors as well as public defenders. But because of the presidential pause to student loan payments, we have not distributed any of those funds. So we have this year's award, which has increased to 78,000. The prior 2 years, we had 36,000 each year. So we have about $150,000 that we can provide to our prosecutors and public defenders once that presidential pause has lifted. So we're hoping that that is another tool that we can use to encourage individuals to go into this line of work.
Very good. Thank you. That's a good report. Are there any questions about the grant awards from any of the board members? If not, let's move on to item 9, scheduling for future meetings. Marcy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So we were trying to propose some possible dates for upcoming meetings. We proposed February 2nd, so it allows us to put out our next quarterly report, receive the report from the monitor, and also get the quarterly reporting from the counties and report it back. And that's kind of on our timeline. You can see that the June 15th meeting is kind of pushed back a little bit more than we usually do. The thought behind this is we're going to need to address our regulations again and add our weighted caseload study recommendations into that. And we wanted to give us sufficient time to be able to work with NCSC, get those recommendations, and hold that workshop before our contract with NCSC expires, which is set to expire at the end of June. The next time you can start working on permanent regulations is after July 1st. So if we do hold that workshop sometime in June, which we're asking June 15th, then we can give it to the legislature so that they can review them and then get it back, and we can take those steps to make them permanent regulations. I don't know if that could be a possible in-person board meeting. We had our one in-person board meeting last year, so we think that might be an appropriate one, but we'd leave it to the board. And then we're also proposing August 3rd and November 2nd.
Thanks, Marcy. Let's start with just February 2. Does that work for everybody, or does anybody have a conflict with that? Let's
Say
just,
the date again.
it is February 2 of 23.
Okay, I'm open.
Yeah, I guess what I would just add, just respond if it's a problem. How about that? Okay, that looks like that's a good date. Let's move to June 15th with the workshop and meeting. I like that idea because as we talked about earlier with the weighted caseload information, I would assume by then we've got the RAND information as well. And then we can wrap all that into together and then be able to deal with regulations as well. So that would be good. Anybody cannot make June 15th?
Can I ask a question about it? This is Allison Chaffee.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we're doing the workshop with the board meeting, does that mean we need more time for that meeting, more than a couple hours that we usually do?
Likely, if we get public comment, I think our last workshop went longer than our usual meetings, but we were able to complete it in an afternoon, if I recall correctly. Jared, do you remember?
Yes, it was an entire afternoon. And I think it went a little after 5, frankly.
Yeah, it makes for a long day. So I guess the second part of that would be an in-person issue. I believe you wanted to kind of delve into that, Marcy. And I like the idea. I had a great time for those of you I saw down at Tonopah. That was excellent. And I would like to see everybody if possible. So. Anybody have an absolute no desire to see me on June 15th?
Where did you have in mind to go to?
Your house, Jeff.
It's only big enough for about 12, so you might not get it. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah, anybody want to put something out there? We talked about Winnemucca being a spot we could do something. Again, for some of you down south, that's a long haul, but yeah, certainly I'd be happy to host everybody. We can set something up here, but If you'd rather be closer to an urban center with more activities, I will certainly understand. So I will entertain any offers or ideas. Okay, nothing. So what we'll do, Marcy, why don't you and I talk about, we'll come up with a couple of ideas and then we'll reach out to folks. And like I say, Winnemucca certainly is, I'd welcome you here. I'm sure we could work something out. And then we'll maybe try to find one other option. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And then August 3rd. I know that's way out there, but you can just quickly look at your schedules, and if there's a problem, just let us know that. So far, you've picked good dates, Marcy. All right, nothing there. How about November 2? Very good. All right, well, obviously, we'll revisit on this again. If we need to change anything, especially on those later ones, we can always adapt. But if that's all we got there, anything else on that, Marcy? All right.
No.
All right.
Well, I think you should have at least one of these meetings in Winnemucca.
I love that, Justice.
Yeah, make it during a summer month though, please.
Yeah, could you be, how about during the Basque Festival? Would that work for you?
We probably won't get a hotel room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. Okay, let's move on to public comment. Any public comment out there? Cindy, you see anything online? Anybody with their hands raised or?
No, sir, we're good. I just checked.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no public comment, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It's 2:33 p.m. And I want to thank everybody. Appreciate all your input today. We got a lot done. And thank you, Marcy and Tom and Peter. And appreciate all of you very much. And have a wonderful weekend and a great holiday season.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Dave,
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Merry
you, guys.
Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
bye. Yellow digital. Oh, yeah, Melissa, thank you for calling. I had a kick with